WICA scrutiny meeting for this year. So I think everybody... Tim, do you want to introduce yourself? Because I think a lot of people maybe not.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Scrutiny Committee. My name is Tim Lawrence, and I, as it says on the title there, I'm the Head of Transport Planning and Appraisal for the Mass Transit Programme. It's not a very snappy title, but in summary, what it means is that I am responsible for the business case, making the case to government for the investment in mass transit. So I liaise with the Department for Transport officials on a regular basis. I undertake traffic modelling and I write up the documentation that comprises essentially our bid to the government.
Thank you. And Mike, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, morning all. So, Mike Birch, I'm the Director of Mass Transit, ultimately responsible for the delivery of the programme for West Yorkshire Combined Authority.
And this is Mike's first scrutiny meeting, but it's also his last scrutiny meeting as well.
Yes, so be gentle.
So, right, any apologies for absence?
Yes, apologies have been received from Councillor Joe Thompson, Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Nichols, Councillor Smith, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Felford, Councillor Nuns, Councillor Forster, Councillor Lawson and Councillor Marchington, and Councillor Timbers, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Watson and Councillor Craig are substituting.
Thank you. And any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests? Nope. Right, the minutes of the meeting on the 20th of February. Oh, there's no exclusions of the present. Item 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of February. Anybody got any questions or observations they would like to make about those minutes? If not, can someone propose that we accept them, please? Move. Thank you. And can you just show of hands that you're happy with them? I know it seems unusual, but we're tightening up on procedures, aren't we?
We are.
Right, so we're now into the item 5, the mayoral activity. Presumably, Ben, is the mayor on her way?
Yeah. Chair, with apologies, the mayor is on her way, so if we just give it a moment for her to arrive, that'd be great.
Right,
Thank
so
you.
well now, what you've got is you've got some papers which came partly from the mayor's office and partly from other parts of the Combined Authority to use as prep for today's meeting. We won't be going through the papers in any case, we're having questions only, using these papers as your basis for moving things forward. Now, the first question we were going to have on devolution, we won't have just now because the mayor will need to answer that question. So, yeah, we do need the mayor's clarification. So what we'll do is we'll go on to mass... Oh, no. Yes, apologies. All right. Okay, we will start with question 1 then. Welcome. Right, Councillor Haig, question 1.
Thank you. So my questions are about devolution and the progress that the authority is making. So my first question is, we're still in the early days of devolution. Are there any internal or external barriers to us getting the right skills, capability and resources to support it?
Thank you, Councillor Haig. Is that to support devolution internally? Within our organisation, is that what you're saying?
Support devolution to and within the authority.
Thank you. There is definitely a piece of work that is ongoing, looking at areas of need around expansion. But one of the challenges is that we want to go faster with devolution. So, for example, we are taking in the responsibilities for fire in 27-28 and talking to government about what that would look like in our organisation. And there's potentially 1,000 firefighters that would come into WICA. We don't necessarily want that. We would like what's called a corporation soul, where they have their own organisation. It's working perfectly well, tubing over firefighters and the whole of the fire service into our organisation. that is something that we're working with government to try and get to the bottom of. So there are things that are external around resources, but Ben wants to come in about the plan for change that, as you know, all of the funding streams have a plan for resourcing.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think the answer is that there are always challenges. We presented a paper to the Combined Authority last October that sets out, in the context of what we expect from devolution, in the context of the devolution bill, that will become law, all being well, over the spring, the resource requirements and the capacity requirements we felt we needed for the organisation. That saw, in our predictions, the organisation continuing to grow. We're about 1,000 people at the moment. We see over the next 5 years that we might need to grow by something like 30 to 40%, but which didn't include in firefighters. So it's not as if the organisation is going to become the size of a traditional unitary authority. We will remain an organisation that is of smaller scale, that's doing less, apart from in transport, less direct frontline activity, but more strategy, commissioning, oversight, evaluation, monitoring, which means that our skills makeup is going to be different. And aligned, therefore, to that plan, we have a people strategy, which includes within it a workforce strategy, which is looking to recruit to those specific areas. So there's a number of campaigns that will start as the work demands.
Yeah, so you talked a lot about sort of strategic and organisational plans that are in place, but I'm thinking more, do we have the right mix of powers? Are we actually able to take things forward ourselves? Are we, relying too much on government plans or ideas about what they want the authority to do? Is there anything really that is holding you back? Do you have those skills, capability, and resources, or is that coming? Because there's a sort of sense of frustration about where we are, I think.
Thank you. Ben, you wanted to come in first.
Thank you, Mayor. So the big step forward, and this was subject of a Combined Authority paper yesterday, is the adoption of the integrated settlement, because that provides a degree of flexibility over funding and longer term funding than we've ever had as an organisation before. So I don't think there is an answer to your question that says with one step we are free. I think what we have are some additional flexibilities that will be very helpful in terms of being able to programme manage to make sure that we are focusing resources on the areas that need them, rather than being overly constrained by government funding streams, which I think is really helpful. You talked about external factors from government, though. I think one of the challenges, and this was discussed by my counterparts with Whitehall officials yesterday in London, is that there still isn't a sustainable funding model for combined authorities. And so resourcing the organisation and ensuring we do so within the right financial framework is still a challenge, and we'll continue to work with government to try and get combined authorities nationally on a more sustainable footing. Thank you.
I could just add as well that you see in Europe where mayors have much more fiscal devolution, so they can make decisions for their community and then get on with it. I think that is one area where we are really pressing and working with government, and we had a good outcome when we presented our case about the visitor levy, where if you go to Europe, you pay a little bit extra for an investment in that place or in that city. We didn't have that here in the UK, so being able to put whatever either a percentage or a couple of pounds or whatever on a bed for a night means that we will be able to then invest in our communities. Now that's going to give us quite a good funding stream for our public realm, for to make our places more attractive for culture, etc. But there is very much an appetite for that to go further, to have our own ability to raise funds, whether that's for big infrastructure projects. So we are more autonomous and more self-sustaining. So it is a process. We are building the bridge on which we're walking. But I do think, and certainly the outcomes from the meeting yesterday, were that government really understand the opportunity for mayors to deliver for their communities and to give us the tools to do that.
Right, the next question again is from Councillor Haig.
Yes, it's also my last question. This question is on combined authority risk delivery and engagement. Do you believe that the authority is too risk averse or perceived to be? And can we learn from other combined authorities that are being less constraining, we can increase the pace? Are we matching the pace at which business would like us to move forward? And is the authority's approach to engagement effective in bringing forward development? And does it provide value to both businesses and the authority?
That's quite the exam question, and we could spend our whole session investigating each one of those particular questions. But I think the fundamental question is about risk, isn't it? And do we move at the same pace as business? Well, absolutely not. And why not? Because this is public money. It's different. And it is a privilege to be able to get monies that could be spent on hospitals and on schools to be given to us to invest in the things that we want to invest in, that we want to build. So we have to prove value for money. We have to be careful with the public's money. We have to make the case. So do we move as fast as business? No. But do we want to work in partnership with business? Yes. I would suggest that as an organisation, we have the fine balance of not being risk averse. And you will see when we get to mass transit that we were bold and innovative and wanted to move fast. But however, we are also sensible. So we are not foolhardy. And we understand the relationships that we need to build with government and that there are due processes. We are also in a good position that we have a team of in-house legal advisors and assurance processes and so on that help us. Now, when I first became the mayor, the assurance process felt like it was a bit of a challenge for projects, particularly smaller projects, to get underway. They were seen in the same lens as big projects. We have looked again at the assurance process to how we can speed up or take a more sympathetic view to projects, particularly creative projects that need a quick sign-off, that aren't about building bridges or huge areas of regeneration, how we get that balance, that not everything is the same. So is it a work in progress? Absolutely. Are we foolhardy? No, we're not. But we really do want to be ambitious and move at speed. I am on a mission to deliver all of my manifesto pledges, and to do that we do have to be agile, but also we are not going to be foolhardy. Ben?
Councillor Haig, a follow-up?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mayor. Just three quick points just to follow up. I think the Mayor has outlined it really clearly. We often find ourselves working with the most difficult projects, the most challenging housing projects, most challenging regeneration projects. That puts us, by definition, at the very risky end of the spectrum, and that's why, as the Mayor says, we do need to be assured that it's the right use of public money. But I think there are two areas where, as Tracy says, we're all continuously looking to improve. One of those is about spending more time planning so that we don't get into a situation where we needed to change projects once they've started procurement or once they're mid-track. So making sure that we approach projects in the right way. And the second is then being proportionate. As the Mayor says, there's a difference in terms of the level of assurance and assessment you need to do for a project that costs a few £100,000 versus one that costs many millions. And we're constantly looking at how we can improve that proportionality. Thanks.
Councillor Haig, your follow-up?
Yeah, that's helpful. I thought perhaps you might have addressed how the changes that are coming in the authority structure might address some of those issues in terms of decision making being in the right place, and how the new investment board will work?
Thank you. Thank you for that. And certainly this is the work that Nikki's been helping us with on the governance structures. We've had 11 committees that duplicate work, potentially aren't as agile or as effective, and we're now looking to a 3 committee structure, investment, Weaver, and the third one is Combined Authority, yes, the CA. It was a big day yesterday, you'll have to excuse me. I will chair those, and we will really have an opportunity then to use the agility of the integrated settlement to be more efficient in our decision making. And I think it's been a huge piece of work, and I really want to thank Nikki and her team for what they've achieved, and also our combined authority partners, because in local government, you will all know, you're on this committee, that being able to be on a committee means you also get rewarded for your time and effort. And so leaders often like to use committees to for balance and so on, to embolden their decision making. So it's a difficult decision for leaders, but we've made the case, and I know that this is going to put us in a more delivery focused position where we can move faster.
Sitting underneath that, though, and this is where we're talking about relationships with businesses and other organisations, there is some kind of structure which will engage with that. So although we're keeping sort of political decision making separate from it, could you just give a bit of an idea how that's going to work?
But of course those 3 committees aren't just standalone and do everything, because we all need advice and guidance from people who are out there doing the job. So my Mayor's Business Council, the Business Board, those are going to be retained. The Business Council, we're taking a view, but it seems to be working so far. But what is really important is how we deliver our growth plan. My job is to deliver growth, and how do we do it? And I think the Business Board's new formation, where they are taking a cluster approach and having a cluster action plan template, where everything is focused on those outcomes, but driven by people in the sector. So people in the business of, for example, the green economy, or the creative industries, or advanced manufacturing, with their experience and their knowledge of business in those clusters, being able to drive forward that cluster action plan with their, the deliverables and the expected outcomes to help us move faster, I think are going to be really important. And also there is an opportunity, as you know, with the devolution bill, to appoint commissioners that will be, as with Alison Lowes, my Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime, do we need a commissioner in other areas? There is that opportunity that I think, as you know, in London, Sadiq Khan has a number of deputy mayors that take responsibilities, whether that's for active travel or other housing and regeneration. So we are looking at how we share the load, and with the lens of deliverability and making sure we get those outcomes that we want to see.
Now, Councillor Timbers.
Hopefully this will be a simple question to answer. I noticed in the reports, and I've heard you use the phrase before, spades in the ground in 2028 for mass transit. Like you, I share an enthusiasm for getting on with it as soon as possible. But given the increasing length of the delivery horizon, what does that actually mean in practice, given and how will it interact with the financial and technical assurance processes which are ongoing?
Thank you. You'll have seen yesterday from the Combined Authority meeting that we agreed a piece of work for Leeds City Council that is improvements up to St James's Hospital. But that also was minded because the confluence of all route options would go up that particular direction. We were minded that mass transit is also coming, so we were taking that into consideration. Spades in the ground is enabling works where things will need to be done irrespective of the delivery of a tram, but that were preparatory works for that tram. But I'll come to Mike because we have a work stream that is focused on spades in the ground, and also being able to support partners like Leeds United. You'll have seen this week Peter being interviewed, talking about how their regeneration project depends on the tram and how we can work together to have an approach where we can help him and his regeneration plans, and he can help us going forward. But Mike, over to you on spades in the ground.
Thank you, Mayor. So, as the Mayor has said, there's been a work stream underway now for some time, working collaboratively with our district colleagues, looking at opportunities to accelerate the enabling works for mass transit. In the exchange with Lord Peter Hendy before Christmas, a commitment was reinforced on that matter, and that will essentially look like proprietary works and passive provision, which passive provision essentially means so all activity that will take place within the kind of phase one corridors of mass transit will all be mindful as we go forward over the next few years of making sure that those interventions take account of mass transit, so that they're essentially preparing the ground so that when we get here it will be delivered much faster and much easier than it would have been otherwise.
Follow up, Councillor Timber?
No, I think that answers the question very fully. Thank you.
Yep. Right, the next one is Councillor Berry.
The timeline for development of skills, is that what you're saying, Councillor Berry? Do you want to take that on, Mike? Thank you.
Of course, thank you. So, when the programme timescales were reset at the back end of last year, early this year, it was absolutely with a risk management approach in mind. So, as the Mayor outlined previously, the innovative approach that the programme had previously taken to look at running the business case in parallel with the consenting and design process, that, whilst accelerated, did import a level, albeit an acceptable level of risk into the programme. So in that reset, now putting in a sequential programme actually de-risks the overall programme in delivery terms, ensuring that we successfully step through the business case processes with government to release the money to deliver this, and then at the right time recommence the design work and commence consenting activities ready for main work starting in the 30s.
But if I may say, Councillor, with our focus on opportunities and training and access to apprenticeships and so on, that work has started and will not stop, because those jobs are out there and our young people need to be ready for the future. And one of the visits recently I had a couple of weeks ago was Kirklees College have a site that is a physical site that will train young people on TransPennine upgrade. And there's a story of a young man who'd heard about it in the pub, walked from his house to the site, got on the course, and is now working on TransPennine upgrade. There are 5,000 engineers on that programme. What we want to do is we want to say, as the region of engineering, which we are, that those opportunities with our new adult education budget, with our skills budget, we are going to ensure with our commitment to more level 3s than we've had before, that those young people are ready for these jobs. And there are many and various, not just engineering on the ground, but transport planning, the legals that are associated with tram and so on. There are a multitude of jobs that we want our young people to be ready for.
Follow up.
Yes, so having observed this process happening in Nottingham and Sheffield, I completely agree with that. And working where I work, I can see there are a lot of young people for whom this is going to come up at the key point in their career development. We need to get them involved with it. I'm trying to interpret the words and the conference. So what you're actually saying is this is a more secure way of delivering the outcome that we want by having adjusted the programme accordingly. What I'm trying to address is every project has its critics. If you'd followed the Sheffield project through, it would never happen. And the district of Headingley, I think, has managed to stop 2 previous Leeds tram proposals. So we're making sure that we get this absolutely right. I do really get that bit about ambition and getting young people to think their way into those roles and jobs, and certainly the university sector and other HE and FE sectors are key part of that. So thanks for the answer.
Okay. Right, Councillor Merritt. Councillor Merritt.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to ask how the CA is going to handle the Minister's ask in his letter of 13th of February. A number of asks, but particularly the ones regarding the determination of the most effective mix of modes and routes, but also the street running versus reserve track issue, running through brownfield sites, and the earlier points in the letter about densification and the link to residential, commercial development and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Merritt. What is really a good news story is that Lord Peter Hendy has delivered light rail projects before, and has also failed in light rail projects before. So he knows exactly how to deliver these projects, and he also knows where the bumps in the road are. So I could not be more pleased that he is the minister that is going to work with us side by side to deliver this project. And in his experience, he also had very good detailed questions about on-road and so on. His preference is, he has his preferences, and we are going through all of the processes you would expect, but I'll go to Mike because it's quite a technical question.
It is a very good question, and I would ask members to be assured that in the process that I outlined in the previous response around stepping through the appropriate stages of a business case is absolutely how you answer those questions. So in assessing whether or not the degree of on-street running versus off-street running, the degree of which you try and access redevelopment versus existing patronage, is all part of the complex model that will come together in the coming years to address that point. But as the Mayor has said, what Lord Hendy kindly did, both during his visit and indeed in the letter, was share some of his own learned experience from his previous time delivering these types of projects.
Follow up, Councillor Merritt?
Yes, two questions. Obviously, Lord Hendy's experience was very much in the very high-value areas of London. How repeatable and what differences are you going to be facing here in terms of that regard? I have a second question.
Well, it's land value is obviously the challenge, but also the opportunity for us is potentially greater than London in that we can then build on that connectivity into the regeneration and make a substantive difference to the outcomes for those communities in a way sometimes that is so constrained in London that you don't have that opportunity like that you've seen in Dublin, for example, where their tram went through a complete wasteland in the first instance, and then you look at it now and it's surrounded by shops and high-rise, and it's absolutely stunning nightlife, and we have that is the size of the prize that we want to grab. But I don't know if you've anything to add, Mike.
Well, I was actually going to invite my colleague Tim to address that, because I think it's got a strong connection into the business case world that Tim looks after.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Mayor. I think you make a really good point that Lord Hendy's experience is rooted in high-density areas, and as the Mayor said, where land value is perhaps of a different nature than it is here. But I think the thing here is there are two elements to this. If we think about the appraisal process, which is kind of what underpins the business case, And appraisal is something we'll probably hear quite a lot about in the next 2 years. How we appraise the options, how we monetize the benefits, how we make that business case as strong as we can, given the area within which we are. And there are two bits of that business case. There's the strategic part of that, which is the argument that we make to government, the case that says, not only is this a good idea from the economics, which we'll come on to in a second, but it's also about saying, as our Mayor has advocated there, what the mass transit system can do against our objectives. You know, that's improving the regeneration prospects, improving the employment prospects, looking to do that higher value density around the route. And we can show that again through modelling, and we can make that case to the department that the money that they want to invest is, you know, has a rate of return that is as high as you would get if you would invest in the south or the southeast. There is this misconception, I think, that abounds that it's easier to do projects, or it's easier to get approval for projects in the south or perhaps in the capital. That's not the case. The appraisal system is not biased towards that. The case is the skill, and I think we have that skill within the programme, is being able to make that case at a strategic level and translate that into the economics, because those people are there. They are going to take the tram, and that development will come, and we can prove that through the business case.
Okay. Yes, yes, it's on the routes, modes and mix. Is there going to be a further round of consultation in terms of, you know, as linked to the additional modelling that will clearly be involved in that, or have you already done all of that?
The short answer is yes. Inevitably, we've been out once. We got a fantastic response about the routes that we had kind of put forward as options to be considered. What we will do now is we'll reaffirm that. We'll look at those routes again with a lot more detail. We are obliged under the Transport and Works Act regulation order to go out and consult again at that level of detail. And the programme will also take a decision where, at a specific point in time, if there has been a significant change, or if we feel the public need to have their say again, and I think we'd all agree that they do, at as many points as we can make that, then I think we could go out again and consult. So we will definitely go out again and consult as part of the Transport and Works Act order, and then I think there is a discussion to be had amongst the CA as to whether we go out again at perhaps at an outline business case time as well, to reaffirm that commitment and to have that discussion with the public.
Obviously, you've done the routes extensively. What about the issue about the mix of modes?
Well, that will have to happen as well, but through the business case, we will have a much better idea as to whether there will be a mix of modes. That's a potential. Okay, and I think what we have to understand here as a group and as a programme and as a combined authority is that our aspiration is for light rail. We have to go through the process of understanding what we ask the government to invest in excess of £2 billion is. This is not a trifling amount of money, is it? So we have to make sure that that mix is correct, is value for money, but at the end of the day, we have to ensure that we are promoting light rail as our preferred option.
Thank you. If I may just say, obviously Tim is an officer, so he can't say what I'm about to say, is that it's going to be a tram. And as the Chancellor of the Exchequer has said on camera, when she was interviewed about what mass transit was going to be, she said, "And Tracy, I said it was going to be a tram." However, we have to make the case, and that is fine. We are now in a process where we have to prove it can't be a bus, and that's fine. We'll do that because it will be a tram. My approach is the case has been proven that light rail is a solution to connectivity in Manchester, in Nottingham, in Birmingham, in Edinburgh, in all of the cities across Europe. The case has been made that tram is the game changer, but we will go through the process, and Tim and his teams are doing a brilliant job of making that case, and that tram will show our opportunity for growth, for regeneration, for jobs, housing, all of those, the good stuff that we know that tram will deliver. But there is a process to go through, but we will do it in lockstep with government. And I hope that you've seen from these letters the partnership approach that we are taking. Whilst there has been a bump in the road and it has caused us a delay and that I'm enormously irritated about. However, we are now at a place where actually let's dust ourselves down, and we are now side by side with government, and we share the same ambition. We have the money confirmed. We are on our way. This project is not paused. It's not delayed. It is en route to delivery. Ben.
Just to add to what the Mayor's said from an officer perspective, and also I guess just to provide context for Councillor Merritt's question, so we consulted extensively in 2021 on the mass transit vision for the whole of West Yorkshire, looking at multiple corridors. We consulted again on multiple routes in 2024, and the next consultation that we must do is a more detailed consultation on the preferred route, which will come at a future stage in the business case. But what Tim says is absolutely right. The business case will inform options around the technology and around the detail of the routes, and we'll go through a continuous process of wanting to ensure that they are the right value for money options as we do that. As the Mayor says, the ambition for what we want to achieve is clear, but we have to make it stack up in terms of the business case.
Councillor Watson.
Great. Hi, thank you. So my understanding is that in our modelling for our decrease that we expect to see in carbon emissions, that mass transit was part of our solution within that. You know, we know that decarbonising transport is one of the trickiest areas for us, as well as obviously things like domestic heating. So with the project wasn't, supposed to come on till kind of the mid-30s, and we have a target of net zero by 2038. So what impact does a delay have on our expectations of our transport decarbonisation, and what measures are being put in place to mitigate against this?
Yeah, so I'll pick up the point on
Carbon.
mass transit, and then I'll maybe look to Ben on the kind of wider question on wider mitigation. So for mass transit, the movement from mid-30s to late 30s, we still have an ambition that we will get operational trams on the streets within those timescales to secure the 2038 targets. If the programme was to change, either to bring it closer or bring it further away, then obviously that would have an impact. But certainly at the moment, the programme as it stands would still look to achieve those targets within the 2038 timescales.
If I could just say as well, transport is our challenge, and there's no doubt about it. When it comes to carbon emissions, clean air, we have to tackle the cars on the road. Now, obviously, in some communities in West Yorkshire, you need a car because you're on the hilltop in, I don't know, Calder Valley or something. But what we are building is the opportunity where you could maybe drive to a railway station or drive to a tram stop where there might be parking, or being able to support car owners in isolated communities. However, our integrated transport plan is the solution, or part of the solution, for the climate emergency. And of course, we want to go faster than that is laid out. Any opportunity, we will take it. So, for example, Bradford City Centre has a clean air zone. We were able to lobby government that, look, we've got a clean air zone, but our buses are diesel. Help us deliver green buses for Bradford. And we, through conversation with ministers, we got £8 million for EV buses. So we've just put in an order for £100 million worth of electric buses. Any opportunity, we will run at it. We are developing a cluster programme for ground source heat pump manufacturers, and Home Energy West Yorkshire, I think we've discussed before, £20 million to get homes warmer and cleaner. We will take every opportunity, but fundamentally, transport is our challenge. We need green, 100% green buses, and that's our plan 2040. We also need people to make the choice that their car is on the drive, but they choose to walk 10 minutes to the bus or the tram stop, or they use the electric bike hire scheme that we've rolled out, not just in Leeds but in Bradford as well. We really do see this as an emergency, and that's why devolution's given us this opportunity to lead the way as being one of the greenest and cleanest mayoral strategic authorities. It is a priority for us, and please be reassured we have not taken our foot off the gas in any way, and we will take up literally all of those opportunities. And we are constantly pressing government for more money for example, the Warmer Homes programme, etc. But Ben, regarding mass transit?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So just on mass transit specifically, so as the Mayor says, transport is definitely challenging, and mass transit, I think there's three things I want to say about that. First is it is an essential part of the long-term future for transport in West Yorkshire in terms of reducing reliance on the private car, alongside other measures that local authorities are putting in place around reducing road space. So it's central, and it has a key role to play in that. That has to be balanced against the sunk costs of carbon in constructing the project, which means that its payback period is over the longer term. And critically, the energy sources that will provide the electricity for mass transit. And I think I just wanted to point there to two things. One is the Climate and Environment Plan that we published last year that places all of that in context and shows the pathway to get to 2038, as the Mayor has outlined. And secondly, the work we're doing with an organisation called NESO, the National Energy System Operator, who are looking at how you get connections to the grid for sustainable energy. And we have to make sure that the energy that is powering systems like the tram is clean, because otherwise it's not contributing towards our target.
Would it be worth mentioning, Ben, the carbon literacy training we've been doing? We've had a programme where we're supporting local authorities as well in their understanding about carbon and infrastructure projects, because this is a very, very complex area of construction and development. So we all need to understand more, we need to be more carbon literate, and so we're funding colleagues to try and support local authorities and ourselves as an organisation. And in fact, I've had a shortened version of the training myself, and it is complex. But the way that it was delivered was very straightforward, and I really appreciated it, and I understand a little bit more about it. And as councillors, if you do get the chance, do take up that training opportunity.
Thank you, Mayor. I mean, as a scrutiny committee, we have looked at the climate plan, so we're really au fait with all of the detail of it. So, and we are fully aware that everything you've said, which is great, that's already included. We know that we need to do those things. So my question is about, we had an expectation that it would help us, because it's all about the emissions under the curve. It's not like we're going to, it doesn't, like if you're saying, the tram will come in at 2038, so therefore we've hit net zero. It isn't that. It's the fact that we have a trajectory, and it's about the emissions that are under that curve. So if we had assumptions that it was going to come in earlier to help us drive us closer, and now it isn't, what I'm asking is, are we re-looked at our modelling? Are we actually going, we know we have to, it's, as you say, Tracy, it's, all hands to the pump, foot to the gas, whatever. All of the things that you've mentioned, we already know we need to be doing. They're in our plan. We know that. It is an emergency, as you've already said, and we can see that in the plan you've written. So my expectation would be that you've gone, okay, this was the assumption we had in our modelling. It's now changed, therefore, either other sectors are going to have to reduce their emissions more, or we're going to have to do something else if we had made the assumption in our modelling that it was going to play a role, that now it can't play that role. So I just wanted to it was great to hear from you, and we know that all of you are really passionate. We know that, West Yorkshire Combined Authority has a great plan and a great target. It was really, I didn't need a list of what we're doing. I want to know, what are we going to do differently, because something fundamental has changed in our planning.
And I think that's a really good and challenging question, and it's something definitely I will take away from this meeting to understand more about. But it has not gone unnoticed, and we're like, oh, well, forget about the climate and environment plan. But Ben, do you want to speak to it directly?
I will, Mayor, but if it's a kind of a technical answer that any forecast has a margin of error, and you have high and you have low scenarios. The immediate impact of mass transit on those carbon forecasts will not be the determining factor about whether we hit or don't hit the target. It's a key factor over the longer term, but there are many variables that have all got associated margins of error with them, such as the two big ones are around the rate at which buildings change their energy sources towards green electricity, and the rate to which we move towards electric EVs. And then within that, the rate to which people switch towards green sources of public transport and active transport. So what I'm trying to say is there are much bigger uncertainties in the plan than whether mass transit starts in the mid-2030s or a little bit later. But we're constantly looking at what are the impacts of the current trends on the plan, and what does that mean for our carbon targets.
And it may be that international circumstances, as we've seen with the war in Iran, that people are maybe making choices to go to an EV vehicle beforehand, before they would maybe in their long-term plans. And we are funding on-street EV charging for that, for the to encourage people to make that decision. So as Ben says, there are many variables within the sort of the bandwidth. What we want to do is also take the opportunity to offset that challenge that you've given us really good and directly, to make sure that whatever else is happening, that the process of the mass transit does not hold us back on delivering on that really ambitious target. Let's not forget, government target is 2050. We are really ahead of the game, and we are very ambitious in this space. But we also, devolution gives us the opportunity to pull those levers, and we will take every chance to do so. But I think it's something that I need to look at in a little bit more detail. But I'm glad you've raised it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor McCarthy.
Thanks, Chair. So many places in West Yorkshire aren't included in the first routes of mass transit. What work is taking place to ensure that other public transport modes, including active travel, are fully integrated with mass transit?
Thank you. In the first round, we also were looking at, and I think we allocated £1 million for how tram would travel out to Dewsbury and out to Kirklees, as you'll remember. But the fundamental integrated transport plan is focused on active travel as a priority as well. That's why you've seen the electric bikes here in Leeds. They've now been rolled out to Bradford. I do believe that where there is a student population, and I would suggest Huddersfield, there would potentially be an appetite for electric bikes. So it is about a partnership and a relationship with the council as well. But I do think with the really ambitious plans for your cultural quarter, that within that there could be an opportunity for active travel. We are investing substantially in protected cycle lanes. And as I said at the Combined Authority yesterday, our threshold has to be, would you allow your 7-year-old daughter to ride a bike on this road? If the answer is no, then you need protected cycle routes. That's what we have to deliver, because we have to give people confidence that they will be safe on their bikes. There is also a piece of work, sort of hearts and minds, about how you get people to even learn how to ride a bike or feel confident. And we're doing a fair bit of work there as well, alongside great charitable projects. There's one I saw recently, which was people affected by a brain injury who weren't able to travel, being taught how to ride a bike. And it was very uplifting, and you did think, this is incredible that now their world is open to them, because they can get around on a bike and no longer afraid. So that it isn't just about active travel, it's also about how how we use our cycle routes and cycle lanes to be as inclusive as possible as well.
A follow-up? Ben wants.
Thank you. Just to add to what the Mayor has said, I think all of that came together in the document that the Combined Authority adopted yesterday, which was the Statutory Local Transport Plan, and that describes the policy framework that the Mayor has outlined. I think the key thing just to add is that bus franchising, as that comes in, will enable us over the longer term to really plan the networks so that they work in a very integrated fashion. We can't ignore that 75% of trips are still made by private cars, so we have to make sure that the road network is functioning efficiently as well, and that the allocation of road space between public transport, the walking and cycling measures that the Mayor has outlined, and the private car is sensibly balanced, so that we're maximising connectivity for the whole population.
Thank you. And you may have seen yesterday we also signed off monies for repairs of potholes, just to Ben's point about making sure that the roads are safe for everyone.
I think the residents were very pleased about the extra money to deal with potholes. One of the things that I think, so for example, my journey to get here would involve a bus and then a train. So I understand that integrated ticketing, for example, is a big part of the local transport plan and what your plans are. So how far are we on with making sure we have an integrated ticketing system when the Weaver network comes into place, and also how that integrate with mass transit as well?
Thank you. That's a great question, because I'm really proud that in West Yorkshire we have one of the most sophisticated multimodal ticket offer in the M card than anywhere else outside of London. So I think we are quite far ahead. You can use it on bus and rail. What we want to do with our transport plan, and we have work streams that are looking at the tech, the ticketing, the integration. My ambition is a tap-in, tap-out card that is capped, that you can use on bus, on tram, on train, and also on bike. So that's the ambition. We're working towards it. Obviously, we're looking at franchising in the first instance. So that bus offer, that Weaver app, is the work that that's underway. But we are also making it passively useful for tram as well.
Councillor Berry.
Yes, this one's on mass transit engagement, about what plans and approaches we're looking to use to engage with both residents and businesses affected by construction of mass transit, but also those who stand to gain in terms of access to work and travel, so that feedback and engagement can be built into a project that assures and takes the community with it.
Thank you so much, Councillor. And absolutely, this is about a once-in-a-generation infrastructure project. Of course, we are hoping to bring the public with us. And what has been so uplifting is that the majority of the engagement has been positive. People are crying out for better transport, and they are very excited and buy into the vision of a tram. We've also brought in businesses. We have 100 mass transit ambassadors from business who in their world, in business meetings, talk about how important tram is to their business and to our communities. But of course, construction and disruption is part of the problem of change. And we've seen it across Leeds, for example, when people are really frustrated about the roadworks, but then they have a brilliant public realm, and would you change it back? Absolutely not. We love it. So we have to embrace disruption, but of course there will be strategies in place, as there are when we're building bus stations and so on, to support our work. What will be helpful is, as we go forward into tram and the disruption of tram potentially, that we will have the control of the bus network through franchising. We'll have a central control from 2028. So we will be able to be agile and responsive to roadworks with our bus network, because we will have that overarching control. It won't be different bus operators fighting it out, but also working with our utilities like Yorkshire Water in partnership and having that view. Do you want to come in there?
Yeah, thank you, Matt. So just to add a little bit more details, so obviously as Ben outlined in 2024, we had the previous consultation. We had a pretty successful return rate on that of around 5,000 respondents. We did learn an awful lot in that process around some additional areas of focus around reaching some harder to reach groups. So work has already taken place on starting to establish those. And prior to the programme reset that was we've talked about, that was starting to gather some pace around what would have been the consultation on a single route and a single mode. So we will continue to evolve that thinking as we go forward, but absolutely accessing the full range of individuals and organisations is part of what we're trying to do in that consultation exercise.
I'm going to follow up.
Yeah, I'd just like to come back in. So as well as looking for skilled engineers and all the other construction work, we're going to need some people who have good skills in engagement with the communities, so that this isn't just a one-off exercise, it's a dynamic and flowing exercise, and engagement is precisely that. It's not this is coming, this is what's going to happen. And then I'm just reflecting that the bit I'm trying to make sure that we don't lose sight of is those people who stand to gain, and that their voices are also heard in that process. But sometimes that's a little bit harder. If you go through a little bit of Bradford called Berkersland up to Leicesterdike, which is where we're going, and you look at what's there now, which is pretty challenging, to be perfectly honest, and see what the impact has been where tramways have gone through in other locations. I've got a stepson in Manchester, I go to Sheffield quite a bit. I've got a friend in Nottingham. Similar sites to that in those other areas have been transformed. So I want to make sure that we're also keeping our eye on the people whose futures will be benefited by this, because there will be challenging moments, but if you get the right people with the right skills to keep engaging and working with communities, then maybe we will do something better than other people have done.
Thank you. And if I may add as well, councillors play a really big role in this. You know your communities better than anybody else. So having full engagement from councillors to help us understand the community, whilst we do have a really responsive consultation team that have been leading a lot of this work, as Mike has said, you know, we are mindful that we cannot afford to miss anyone in this conversation. This is a West Yorkshire project for everyone, and it includes everyone. It's for everyone, and so everyone should be able to have a voice. But councillors are really pivotal to that. So I want to thank you for the work that you do, talking to your communities about the changes that are coming.
Thank you. I think at this point I need to declare a non-pecuniary interest, because I work for the Equality and Human Rights Commission, and actually I work on its transport project as well, and in respect of public sector equality duty monitoring. But I definitely resile myself from anything connected with West Yorkshire and the combined authority. Mass transit plans refer to an EDI statement rather than an equality impact assessment, and I presume that's in order to meet the needs of the public sector equality duty. How does the EDI statement ensure compliance with the public sector equality duty? And how is ongoing due regard being demonstrated in the development of mass transit beyond assertions about equality in the EDI statement? Sorry, I was getting a bit legalistic when I wrote this. And this includes I'll try and translate what I wrote.
Please, councillor, because I'm lost currently.
Okay. So every function that this combined authority has is subject to the public sector equality duty, which is to have due regard to the three aims of the public sector equality duty, which is Equality Act, Section 149. So it's basically to have due regard to equality. And that is an active duty from the beginning to the end of the project, and it's a duty to be evidence-led, not statement-led, but evidence-led. So I suppose I was concerned when I heard that that there is an EDI statement which makes, which presumably makes broad assurances. But what I wanted to find out is how that actually plays out in the delivery of the project, so that there is ongoing scoping and inquiry about how people with protected characteristics will be affected by the project, the delivery of the project, and the operation of the project.
Thank you so much, and you serve us well on the committee, so thank you for that. Nikki, I wonder if I could come to you, because obviously this is about a legal approach as well.
So, really interesting, Councillor Timbers, that you're part of that commission. When you are dealing with a major project, as you know, the scheme life cycle it sort of iterates itself in lots of different cycles. And given the stage that we're at, and there's been realignment, when you're dealing with strategies prior to implementation, that Section 149 duty continues, and it's a constant circular view of how we will make sure that we are discharging that function in regards to discrimination, making sure that everyone's got full access. And when you're doing a major scheme of this kind, it's quite conceptual in the beginning, and as that scheme develops with the team, it will become more detailed. And that duty, it sort of layers and stacks on itself, as you know. And I will be supporting the mass transit team in ensuring it's not just a statement, it's an evolving process. So there's a legal analysis all the way through. And as that stacks, the scheme becomes more and more detailed, we'll constantly do that review as well. We're really mindful of that duty. It's an area that's been subject to legal challenge, so we as an authority are really alive to that, and we will make sure that when the assessments are done, and it's not just a statement, that we do a proper analysis of how that scheme's developing, how it's affecting certain sectors of those people in the public that have got protected characteristics. There will be a detailed analysis at that stage. But when you're at conception stage and you've got a strategy in place, it's circular, as you know, and I think we're in quite early stages. So to give you assurance, the legal team will be working with the technical team to make sure that that's properly analysed.
Thank you so much, Nikki. And Ben, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a few quick points from me to build on what the Mayor and Nikki have said. So, as an organisation, we're absolutely committed to the PSCD. There's no, we really need to keep restating that on the record, and to early engagement on those issues, as Nikki says, throughout the life cycle of the project. And indeed, we had a whole work stream focused on this for mass transit. Yeah. As Nikki says, we will engage early, but this really becomes critical at a later stage in the project's development. And if you wanted to look at our commitment to that, then the place to look is probably not mass transit, but it's to look at where we are on bus franchising, where yesterday at the Combined Authority, we presented the results on the consultation in terms of bus design and bus features, and as a key part of that is interaction with the PSCD.
Yeah, just a supplementary question. I would expect at this stage, and I agree that when you've got a complex project, it's an iterative process and a developing process. But the first stage is actually to be evidence-based, and to work with your evidence and research teams to gather what evidence there is at this current time, and then to develop it in the light of the project development itself.
Thank you. If I could go to Tim just on that, that early work.
Thank you, Mayor. I think there's a case here of just giving you some reassurance that this is in play. You made very correct reference to the statement, but within the statement there is a commitment to undertaking EQIAs. And I think what you're going to see is as the strategic outline case is developed, there is an EQIA being developed in parallel with that. So I think we've got it there, haven't we, with the sense of nod. So when we produce the SOC, there will be an EQIA that accompanies that. Even though it is at a relatively conceptual stage, we will be able to provide that evidence, I think, that you and that we are obliged to provide under that in public sector duty.
Thanks, Tim.
Great, thank you. And I hope it's not another exam question, but I feel it could be. So I'm really sorry. But so I know that you've described it, that we've, you know, had a kind of bump in the road on our delivery of mass transit. So kind of what are your lessons for us as a combined authority, and also for us as a scrutiny committee, from the approach that we did take when we were trying to, you know, kind of move forward? And I know that, you know, Tracy and others, we've said it was an innovative approach. So what are the lessons for us to learn for some of the other big projects that we also want to see delivery for?
Devolution needs to catch up. I think that is the lesson. That we want to run faster as mayors, and the processes at the heart of government haven't quite iterated in the way that we would need to get that partnership approach. We know that the system, it works as such that if once mass transit is built, there was a select committee where someone had to speak to the project, it wouldn't be me and it wouldn't be Ben. Currently, it would be a civil servant from DFT. I think that's crazy. So that's why the new reset has supported the current system. So we are making sure that we go through every gateway in partnership with government, so everybody's reassured that if they were in front of the select committee, that they would be able to speak to that. Now, is that the right way to do it? In Europe, mayors identify what they need to deliver and they can make those decisions. I do believe the government want to help us in this space, but I think the one thing that we've learned is that devolution needs to be addressed throughout every single department across government, and there are some departments where it's much more advanced than others. We're now working absolutely in the way that government is used to working historically for many other projects. But Ben, come in.
Thank you, Mayor. Completely agree with what you've just said. I think two points I'd make in addition. Number one, this is the first time, or rather, that a project of this scale that's not sponsored by central government has been delivered, and so there's learning both on our parts and on the part of the Department of Transport. But the Mayor's absolutely right. The final decisions about each gateway are taken by central government departments, ultimately by Treasury and the arm's length bodies that advise them, not by the Mayor. And that's so we are doing two things as part of the learning from that. We're making sure that we follow exactly all the current processes and guidelines that the Mayor has outlined, but we're also looking to take forward a piece of work saying how would we prefer this to work, and doing that in partnership with government as well.
Mr. Watson, do you want to come back in again?
No, I'm just interested, and you may not think that. Was there anything that you felt that we as scrutiny should have done differently? Because I mean, it's our job, isn't it, to look at the plans of the combined authority and to scrutinise and ask hard questions. I'm sort of asking your opinion, did we miss something by not being a greater challenge?
No, I wouldn't say so, because I mean, look at the situation. We had the money to deliver it. We had government buy-in. We had the commitment from the public wanted it. Business wants it. Everybody wants it. We were in a position where as you know, normally you do the business case. That's the right way, isn't it? You do the business case first, and then you do the planning in that sequential process, and then you get the money. But we'd been given the money, so we were in a very different position to other infrastructure projects. But unfortunately, just the way that things are, that we were given it in a new way, but the system really hasn't changed to that new approach. So nobody could have seen this potentially. I don't think, because, you know, we were really positive about the position we were in, that we didn't have to fight for the money, we didn't have to prove the case. Government understood that West Yorkshire needed a tram. So I don't think you should be in any way critical of the committee, because we were in a position, we were all in the same position, that we thought this is a new way to do things. But remember, this is the first scheme that's retained like this in the country. There will be other mayors who are also, when they have these big infrastructure projects, also faced with the same challenge. So actually, we're a first adopter, unfortunately. So we are paving the way for other people to understand the challenges that will face them. That whilst the process of getting the money is innovative and, you know, positive, the process of delivery is still set in a particular way. I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
My question is on mass transit. Yes, I've got a question. Is at 15. Is on the development of the Dewsbury line. Now, I see under 7.35, it's on page 36 of our report, that's been paused due to a calculation of poor patronage, which I find surprising, since having the tram creates the patronage rather than the other way around. At least that's been my experience of Manchester, where you had no patronage. I don't know how you know you're not going to need a tram. It's by putting in the tram that you create the people going there, and indeed the forecast of having a tram means development will be put in anticipation of it. And I think Dewsbury, in my opinion, is an area that will benefit from that more than helping people get to the IKEA at White Rose Centre.
Thanks, Tim. Do you want to answer that one? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Thanks, Mayor.
But also, may I say, can you just write to government about that as well, please? So, Tim.
That's an interesting point, actually. I think it's perhaps, I wouldn't go so far as to say an anomaly of the appraisal system, but it's definitely a quirk of the appraisal system. When we try and forecast when we try and forecast patronage, we build a traffic model, and that takes the current situation and it makes an assessment of how many people might use the tram based on a very simple concept, which is whether they will save time going from their origin to their destination. It's quite a blunt tool in some respects. Future patronage is then has to be done in a way that has some level of certainty about it. So you can input, if you like, various development scenarios into that model of greater densification or greater change in land use, for example, new developments. But they have to be relatively certain. So they have to be within statutorily developed plans, so your local plan. And the fact of the matter is that that is the process by which the department assesses what the potential patronage might be. It's a little bit like, if I can quote an old phrase, computer says yes or computer says no. And unfortunately, at a very basic level, that's how we have to do it. And having looked at the results, and I've done this in quite a lot of detail over the last 4 or 5 months, from the Dewsbury kind of area, there's a lot of space between Dewsbury and Leeds, and there is a lot of countryside. There's a very small ribbon of development up the A653, Chidswell, and then there's a lot of countryside between Junction 28 and the White Rose. There's a significant population within Dewsbury, but the types of journeys they're making at the moment are not necessarily to areas that would be served by the tram at the moment, and a lot of them take the train to get to Leeds. So it's a mix of understanding how we can bend that story to make it fit a narrative that both you and I understand is correct, which is development will happen, people will take the tram. It's just at the moment there's a little bit of an anomaly between what the model says and what we know will happen. So we rely on the strategic case, we rely on that argument that says development will come, it is right for the region, it is right for that corridor, but we have to offset that against quite a significant amount of costs of potentially carrying a lot of people, or not a lot of people, through that swathe of countryside. So what I'm trying to say there, and what perhaps wasn't as clear as it could have been, is that there's a delicate balance that we have to find between the amount of money it's going to cost to build the scheme and how we make sure that we can evidence to the department that those passengers that we know will happen will actually get on the tram.
Thank you. Ben?
Clarify that for me.
It's not so much clarified, Tim, it's just building on what you've said and what the Mayor said. The challenge, as Tim has outlined, is absolutely right. You might be aware that the government is looking at what they call place-based business cases, which aim to bring together business cases from different departments that allow us to look at them in the round. And actually, if you could project a future where you're looking at the potential development in Dewsbury and along that corridor, and put that alongside the investment in mass transit, you get a synergy that will justify the business case, and that's what we're trying to get the government to take on board by quantifying that strategic business case.
Yes, I mean, I understand it. I mean, I don't agree with it, but I think this is part of the hazard of it being run from the budget being run from Westminster, essentially. Even if you've got a chancellor who does at least represent this area, is a lack of understanding of what it's going to mean to the areas you want to develop. I mean, I think Leeds and Bradford are the most developed areas in many respects, and I feel you want to do something for the areas that are already poorly served. Now, it's a monumental task for me to get from my house to Dewsbury and to get to Halifax and Huddersfield. It means going into Leeds and going out again, and getting the tram route in would be a great benefit to all concerned in the area, and I just feel an opportunity may being delayed, even if it's delivered eventually.
Can I just say, I 100% agree with you. The key is for us, build the first spine, make the case, prove that this makes the difference. And once we've got that spine, then my ambition is we have the tree of networks, that because we've made the case, we've got this thing up and running. And you saw that in Manchester, you see it elsewhere. It's just one line. You just have to start with one line, and then everybody's convinced, and people are there's a greater appetite for maybe risk. So please bear with us, because what I can see is that the tram will unlock those communities that have been poorly served by transport and bring in investment, and build it, they will come. I do believe that, and I know that UK Reef is in a few weeks' time. When people talk to me about how they want to invest in our region, transport is the key, and once you've got that one spine, you're on your way.
Thank you. Councillor Berry. You were on to Northern Powerhouse Rail and Electrification. Question 11.
Yes, so the much needed and overdue project addressing the...
You want to pop your mic on?
Sorry, yeah. Addressing the legacy of poorly planned Victorian infrastructure, which we're uniquely beset by in Bradford, that's inhibited growth and travel for far too long. Can you update the committee on the anticipated delivery times?
Thank you. We, in the White Rose Rail Plan, you'll have seen that we had a loose delivery plan. What I'm very excited about is in the £45 billion worth of investment in Northern Powerhouse Rail, something that has been promised for decades by the previous government, that we are now going to be underway with that connectivity. I'm also pleased that the three mayors with David Blunkett have been able to come together to have that Yorkshire lobby group, and we are first in the queue for the investment, which is not something you can always say about Yorkshire. And the timescales for Leeds to Sheffield, I'm going to come to Ben for that because it's in the plan. we know that there is a real appetite to get underway. And my strategic rail board that is, as I've said before, is all of the players you need. It's Network Rail, it's DFT, it's ourselves, it's the train operators. We are iterating that into the board, the White Rose Rail Board, that will be working closely with government as well to deliver. But Ben, if you've got a few more clear dates.
Thank you. I don't think I can provide complete clarity on dates. What you'll be aware that the government has announced Northern Powerhouse Rail and £45 billion of potential investment. We're now working with the Treasury and Department of Transport teams and Network Rail towards developing a set of business cases. We're hoping that that will conclude towards the end of this year, and that will provide the kind of, I wouldn't say certainty, but the set of forward dates that will give us a bit of a clearer indication about when we can see these projects actually completing their development and business case process and coming into delivery. But we are looking into late into the 2030s, which is what was set out in the White Rose Rail Plan. I think what's really heartening is the fact that that plan has been adopted in terms of the Northern Powerhouse Rail work broadly as it's set out in the document. So, and therefore that gives you an indication as to the priorities and how they've been taken forward.
And it is reassuring that all of the work that we did collectively, telling government what our issues were, what the challenges were, has been adopted by government. So it does feel like we're in a very good place. And as a councillor from Bradford, I'm sure you're pleased as well that the next gateway for the new station in Bradford is this summer, and we're definitely going to hit that gateway to the next step. So, you know, part of the White Rose Rail Plan is not just electrification to Sheffield and to York, it's that new station in Bradford that's definitely going to be the game changer.
Councillor Berry?
Yeah, coming back on that, yes. I mean, it's only a few years since one had to get a pacer to Sheffield, and you were bouncing around in that inimitable, nostalgic way. But the priority on this for Bradford in particular, with our inhibited infrastructure that's been there a long time, is, you know, anywhere else in Europe, getting to Manchester would be a matter of half an hour or so. The fact it still takes you an hour and a bit to get to Manchester is quite concerning. So what you're saying is that we're at the front of the queue, we've cleared a lot of the obstacles, the commitments are there, and then we need to see, the station will be the key sign of intent as far as I can see in Bradford, getting a station that, you know, smooths that journey. Electrification is absolutely essential because you can't reach all your other targets unless you do that. I think the thing here is to keep people appraised of these milestones so that the confidence is maintained, because that confidence is a channel to business investment, because getting people to inform, you know, I don't want to go through all the old railway history of Metroland and other things. It's been said several times in this meeting, if you build the rail infrastructure, then the investment and the jobs will follow. But you've got to have that faith to get it done. Okay, well, I think we're going to have to keep going on this to keep the confidence and the commitment going.
If I could just say regarding Sheffield, I was recently at the launch of the Yorkshire Flyer, which is direct to Sheffield, and is going to make a big difference, I think, into that commuter corridor. But also work is now underway for Platform 17, the extension to that platform, which means that the trains can have more carriages going to Sheffield and into the West Midlands. And to reassure you that I'm also working with Claire Ward, the Mayor of East Midlands, to develop that connectivity as well. Remember that when we had the Y of the HS2, we were the first to go from the Midlands to Leeds. That money was never rolled into the monies that we've seen now for Northern Powerhouse Rail, so we were poorly served twice, I have to say. But getting fast trains from the East Midlands up to Sheffield and then to Leeds is also a priority that I will be working with her on that, deepening that plan. But work is underway, and I think your point about the capacity at Leeds Station as well, That's really important, the onward travel outside of Leeds Station. It's helpful that the protected land, some of that land has now been lifted, so works can get underway, but it's an ongoing challenge, and these things take so long and are so expensive. But the good news is we're first in the queue and work is underway.
Councillor Watson.
Great, thank you. Again, sort of sticking with the rail questions. So we're told the story that, you know, once we get a through station in Bradford, so I'm a Bradford councillor, I went and had a good look with some of the officers around, you know, that whole area, and we talked about the challenges. So we're told the story that a through station will help transform the economy of Bradford. And so I was kind of trying to get my head around other areas or other cities that are like Bradford. So Doncaster is on a main line. It's on the main East Coast main line. It has 7 train companies serving it. But ONS data show us that Doncaster and Bradford have similar levels of deprivation. So I want to understand, what evidence are we basing our assumptions on that by having a through station in Bradford, we will actually have a different journey and a different outcome than a city like Doncaster that is actually far better connected than Bradford can ever be. So I just can't make that narrative fit in my head with looking at other cities that are better connected. So I don't know if anybody can tell me where I need to look for the evidence that we've worked out that this is the thing that will actually decrease deprivation in our city.
Thank you so much, and really, as always, a really intelligent, thought-through question. Thank you very much for that. Now, I don't know the makeup of Doncaster, but what I do know is that the investment that we've already put into Bradford, whether that's around the city centre, whether that's the public realm, already we are getting investors come to Bradford because of our confidence. Bradford City Village, for example, you know that high quality housing in the centre of Bradford, Darley Street Market. Bradford has been spoken about in a different way. Now, we have a station in Bradford that is, it's a cul-de-sac. You go in and then you come back out again. That is not going to help our productivity. It doesn't make us look like a European city. And you'll have seen Bradford's pitch for UK Reef and their investable propositions. Their ambition is off the scale, and you deserve, as a Bradfordian, a railway station that matches that ambition. I see it as like King's Cross. All of that redevelopment around King's Cross that make it not only an extraordinary station, but also investable because of the retail offer, the business and so on. So the work has been done to make the case to government that, and there are the numbers attached, the tens of thousands of jobs, the opportunities for investment, the lift in the economy. I'll come to Ben in a minute, but rest assured, this is a game changer for Bradford, notwithstanding all the other stuff that's also ongoing. Bradford City of Culture has also been a massive lever that has turbocharged investment and delivery for the city. It's such a great opportunity for us in West Yorkshire, the youngest, the most diverse community. We have graduates underemployed in Bradford because they can't get to Leeds, they can't see opportunities in Halifax and so on. Having that opportunity to get to Manchester via Huddersfield is going to be a game changer. Ben?
Thank you. So I guess a bit of more technical background to underpin what the Mayor's just said. So I think most people would argue that transport connectivity is absolutely essential, but it's necessarily not sufficient on its own. So it has to be part of a broader strategy. And as the Mayor has done, I refer you to the Built Different strategy that Bradford have gone live with this week, that really sets out the different elements that need to come into play in terms of regeneration, placemaking, working with communities, investment in skills, to get the full benefits of agglomeration. We had a previous conversation about business cases. The real game changer for Bradford from the investment in the station is the reduction in journey time between Leeds and Bradford from the current kind of 25 minutes down to less than 10. That kind of non-marginal change is what can lead to business and market growth through agglomeration over time. It's not an overnight thing. That can lead to sustained economic growth, and that kickstarts the kind of virtuous circle that the Mayor has talked about. So it's the combination of good transport policy, making non-marginal changes in combination with all the other factors that are essential to create sustainable economic growth that ultimately leads to both agglomeration economies within Bradford and between Bradford and its surrounding places. And that's what we're here to help Bradford achieve.
Let's come back in again.
I'm sure, Councillor, if you were to speak to colleagues at Bradford, they have the very detailed business case and numbers for you.
Well, they weren't actually able to answer the question when I did the walk with the officers, so I'm not sure that they could, because I asked them that same question, and they were a bit confused about why Doncaster itself has not, and obviously Doncaster itself has had a lot of regeneration schemes and a lot of money poured in over the years. So I'm not saying that I'm not supportive of the scheme. It's just interesting to think about why we think something's going to be different in another place when we can see somewhere that it didn't work. And also, I suppose, in some ways, we'd always want to know what are the learning from that and what is different. But yes,
Thank you.
very
Ben
much
wanted
for your,
thank
for
you.
your
Ben
answer.
just wanted to come in on the back of that.
Well, I think it's only to say that it's just to return to a point about it being a non-marginal change. So Doncaster's always been a railway city, and it benefits from the engineering and the railway industries that have located there, and the logistics industries that locate there. And there's a growing market of population that are commuting using the LNER services to commute, particularly towards London and the southeast for work. So I don't think it's the case that Doncaster has had no effect or no benefits from being on the East Coast main line. Quite the contrary. I think the counterfactual is, what would it be like if it wasn't on the East Coast main line? But like I said, there's a complex cocktail of factors that have to come into play and be deployed in a sustained and consistent way over long periods of time.
And if I could also add, it's what Ben was saying about the agglomeration, about bringing Leeds and Bradford closer together with a population of the size of Scotland. What an opportunity that is, and particularly supporting Bradfordians and their businesses to access Manchester Airport in a way they currently can't in the same way. You know, it's opening us up to further opportunities, business opportunities.
Hi, yeah, it's really good to hear about Northern Powerhouse, and it was really good to hear about the investment for Ellen Station as well earlier on today.
I did suggest everybody in Ellen should do a jig after 20 years of waiting for that station.
It's been a very, very long time. When I first heard about it, I didn't have any white hair. So my question is really about the Caldervale line, which is it keeps on falling off the agenda. There was a motion last year at Calderdale Council, which was supported unanimously. So there's consensus across all parties about our concern about the development or the lack of development in terms of the Caldervale line. The case for its electrification was made 10 years ago, and we're not seeing any progress in that. I suppose the question that I'm asking is, can you use your influence, because I know at the end of the day it's the national government's decision, isn't it, not your decision, but your influence to ensure that it doesn't fall off the agenda, that the case for the electrification of the Caldervale line is made, that Ellen Station isn't just a wonderful thing for Ellen, it actually links to a fully electrified rail system. 10.8 million passengers used the Caldervale line last year. So it's really important that it doesn't fall off the agenda, and that Westminster understand that it remains a priority for West Yorkshire.
Please be reassured, you'll have seen it in the White Rose Rail Plan. It's an ambition that we share, and I know it also gives us choices and greater capacity. That's the challenge that we face. We're not like London, where if there is a problem on the Transpennine line, then you have choices, other buses, other routes. You can make your way to your destination. Eventually, we have a real challenge. So please be reassured, it hasn't slipped from my priority. We are in a phased process through the White Rose Rail Plan, and we are starting with the capacity at Leeds, Leeds Sheffield, Leeds York, and Bradford New Station. But it is still there, it is still in the plan, and when monies are available, we will be definitely pressing for it. But Ben, did you want to come in?
I think Maeve actually said the two things I wanted to say. The first of which was it is in the White Rose Rail Plan, so so it will be something that we're continuing to press for with government. But also, please don't underestimate the first critical stage of that is the electrification of the line from Leeds to Bradford Interchange, because you've got to do that before you would then electrify and make the line improvements from Bradford towards Halifax and beyond. So the thing with the railway is everything is connected and integrated with everything else, and this is a really important first step.
Councillor Timber?
Yes, another concern that we have is that if there's this stepped development of electrification, that will have an impact on the type of vehicles that will be used, and that will actually build in costs to the to the network in West Yorkshire. If you're travelling down one line, you can use properly electric trains. If down another line, you have to use a hybrid solution, and hence the importance of actually making the arguments to ensure that you don't actually build in additional costs at this transitional stage.
We don't procure the trains, but from my strategic rail partnership meetings, I know that the railway companies are absolutely alive to this challenge. So hybrid, I think, has been the preferred choice. So they are ready for change.
Thank you. And actually, that last question gave a little bit of what I imagine the answer to this one will be. Obviously, the electrification of key routes is really, really positive. But having worked for years on LNER and knowing what it is when the electrification goes down, are we going to be making sure that all the alternative routes that drivers have the route knowledge to travel on, because you can't just take any route, either have appropriate electrification as well as the main routes that we will expect them to take all the time, or are we going to have enough rolling stock that's still diesel to be able to effectively work through disruption? Thanks.
Thank you. We're currently not running the railways. Understanding the sort of technical delivery on a day-to-day basis is not an area of specialism for me, but I do challenge the TOCs about their training program, their driver knowledge, the fact that they've recruited more drivers, but they are new and need the training of particular routes, and also the capacity for rolling stock. And also freight is in there as well, because let's not forget that freight is also something they have to manage on the railways. So I'm sorry I can't give you a very detailed answer to that unless a colleague can. Ben?
Is there anything more to say?
No. Thank you. Sorry about that.
I don't think I was necessarily aiming for you to be able to answer it today. I guess my request is more around, can that be raised in the meetings that you're in with rail strategic partners in the long term? Thank you.
Well, certainly about drivers has been a perennial problem, and ensuring that with Transpennine Upgrade, the new trains that they have brought on, that Transpennine is across the whole of the north, so they need to know all of those routes. But that also then slows up the pipeline of drivers, etc. So it is something that we do discuss, but definitely happy to put that on the agenda.
Right, we're now moving on to trade missions and international links. So Councillor Rontree. I know Councillor Watson's suggested that you go in before her.
Thank you, Chair. Hi there, Mayor. Start with a really open question. I hope it's an open question. What benefits do you think West Yorkshire gained from the trade mission to Switzerland and Germany?
Thank you. I'm delighted you've asked that question because we have achieved so much, particularly the trade mission to Switzerland. There has been an agreement called the Bern Agreement between our government and the Swiss government that creates frictionless trade between financial and professional services between our two countries. And I was the first mayor, we were the first delegation to go to Switzerland so soon after the Bern Agreement, and being able to tell the story about the Northern Square Mile here in West Yorkshire. We are the largest financial and professional services cluster outside of London, but also to take businesses with us to make those deals, have those conversations, and also to meet the Swiss ambassador, to say that we want to partner with Switzerland, given our areas of specialism. The outcomes have been terrific, deals signed, follow-up meetings in the diary, but that was only one part of the trade mission. We also met the chambers of commerce, so our businesses met each other. We also identified opportunities to share knowledge through our university and also the universities in Germany. It was a really successful trade mission, and it is my job. It is it's in the handbook of being a mayor. You have to be an ambassador and a champion for your region, but I also have to enable businesses to be exposed to opportunities. And we have understood that actually one of the biggest successes was the delegation we took with us, the different businesses, that they, between them, also benefited, notwithstanding the businesses and the people they met on the trade mission.
So which one of your follow-ups do you want to ask?
Right, I think actually I'll go with the education side, if I may. Do you identify any scope for collaborating in? Put this over here. Looking at you makes sense. For collaboration in vocational education and exchange of students, teaching staff, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Obviously, the challenge is that we are not in the customs union. We are outside of Europe. However, the opportunity for us is making the civic relationships and the relationships between institutions. So we went to KIT, we went to EPI, which is a centre of excellence on innovation, and already there are relationships with Leeds University talking. We met Schreider, they make trains. Schneider. We met with them and talking about an opportunity to set up a head of tram and also Northern Powerhouse Rail, a centre of innovation around rail and tram, bringing together our areas of expertise. It was a really exciting outcome. There was, particularly around AI, and space was also discussed with our areas of excellence in our academic institutions.
Well, just to, if it's helpful, I keep doing this in this session, but refer back to the Combined Authority meeting yesterday, where the Combined Authority approved the international strategy for economic growth, and there's a section in there on international students and how they can be facilitated. So there's more detail there.
And just on that point, on the trade mission with the Prime Minister to India, it was very interesting to meet other universities and vice chancellors who are going to other countries to set up universities in situ so they can train students there rather than necessarily bringing students to our universities, but also sharing the knowledge between the two countries. I think that's going to be a real game changer. And I know that Yorkshire universities are looking to join us on the Indian trade mission with the Great North. All of the northern mayors going together to India in the autumn, and we will of course be taking some of our exceptional universities with us to make that case. We should share knowledge.
Since the Mayor mentioned India, and you've got another question further down, do you want to do your question just now, Councillor Rowntree, on the India mission? If you want to add anything to it.
Okay, go for that. Thank you. And I was also going to follow up with this, just sort of asking about having done this. Are there any sort of lessons that you can take to the proposed India mission and beyond?
Well, the more I do, the better I get, that's for sure. And I know that we have an opportunity. We're going to be in competition with other mayors as well. So we've got the opportunity to really make the case for West Yorkshire. And as we build our investable proposition for our region, remember, we've only had a mayor for 5 years. So try to understand and the changes that we've already made to build on those to make us a magnet for investment. But the one learning that I identified just in my previous answer is the people you take with you and the benefits they can get, and to empower them to make their own meetings and to cluster between themselves. So, for example, when we went to the US, having a number of businesses that worked in space, they had their own independent meetings with businesses that they then got deals with and so on, that I didn't necessarily need to attend. I was doing other things. So being able to make the most of the people you're taking with you. But Ben?
I mean,
learnings.
Thank you. Only to add that, and the international strategy for economic growth we talked about just now sets this out. You learn every time you go, and it's about building sustainable long-term relationships in which businesses understand the role that we're playing and the role that they can play in terms of the markets that they're seeking to access. So with all these trips, as the Mayor says, we take a selection of businesses, some of whom will already have an established trading relationship or have operations in the country that we're going to, and more importantly, in the part of the country that we're going to. And you'll see from the strategy that we talk about India. India's obviously a huge country. We're very targeted in terms of the sectors and the places that we go to, taking businesses for whom that is relevant. And so you've got businesses that are looking to build relationships and businesses that are looking to build on existing relationships. That's why this is a long-term programme.
Right, the Councillor Bithell.
Thank you. Are we looking to use any adult skills money to work on language acquisition in adults to support our international trade opportunities?
That's a really interesting question. Hadn't crossed my mind. What we are doing is we are doubling our investment in ESOL, if that's of use, to just answer a little bit of that question. But when it comes to other languages, I suppose, trying to get to the nub of your question, are we teaching people German in order to go on trade missions to Germany? Is that what you're suggesting?
I was thinking more the languages that we are now engaging with on trade that aren't the sort of traditional European languages that are somewhat taught in schools, so that we can have a generation of people who, for example, with Mandarin, Hindi, etc., where we can then be at the front of the quote-unquote English-speaking world's engagement with trade in those areas.
Thank you. Obviously, schools curriculum is for schools, and language is part of a school curriculum. What is tragic is that languages have been eroded in schools. For adults. For adult skills. There is no plan currently to be running those programs, but we do ensure that when before I arrived, the CA went to China, and we have colleagues who speak Mandarin. So you would, of course, surround yourself with people who could speak the language. But whether we were training people to speak languages of areas that we have a trading relationship with, it's not something I've thought about. So it's a good provocation. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you. I don't think I have much to add other than to say that obviously the adult learning system is still learner-led, and so actually the role that we may well have is in advocating the importance of those languages and of languages generally to the learner community, and do that both through businesses that often sponsor people and to people directly. But as the Mayor says, we'll take that one away.
Councillor Watson, do you want to come in for your question?
Oh yes, yeah, that's okay. Thank you so much. Sorry, I've not had a chance to look at the international strategy, but now I'm aware that that's there. It shall become part of my reading. I'm just asking, obviously, the more that we do international travel, obviously there's a carbon emissions from that. I'm just wondering, within WICA's kind of corporate policy, what do we do? How are we offsetting those emissions? So the more that we do, I'm imagining in the international strategy that will require more international travel, and therefore obviously associated carbon emissions with that. So I'm just wondering what is in place internally that we are trying to, I don't believe in carbon offsetting. My thing would be to reduce demand, but I imagine it is something that, a corporate body like WICA can do, in the short term. So I'm just wondering what the policy is and what action is taken to offset those emissions. And particularly as we are, if we've got a strategy now, we're going to see potentially more aviation travel.
Thank you. And I just want to reassure you that wherever there is the opportunity, we will take the train. In Germany, we took the train. In the US, we took the train. I prefer the train over flying, so I will always take the train. But of course, as an organisation, we do have a view about what we can achieve.
So our corporate carbon reduction strategy is still in development, but what I'll do is take away what you're saying and make sure that is an explicit part within it.
Thank you, that's great.
Question session. Can I thank the Mayor and Ben and Tim and Mike for coming along today? Can I also thank Mike, who, as I said earlier, is his first and his last scrutiny, so he's managed to do both on the same day. But this is the last meeting of the Scrutiny Committee, so if you just hold on 2 secs. The next item 6 is the next steps in the work plan. I think what we're going to do now is just pass on this work plan to the successor body, and it'll be up to them to decide what's going to happen. Councillor Merritt?
Yes.
Sorry, Councillor Merritt, just before you reply, I would like to say, Councillor Anderson, this is also your last Scrutiny Committee. I want to thank you personally. You've held my feet to the fire. You've always been curious and always very intelligent questions that really do, you're a critical friend. You've been a fantastic colleague. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
all the best in your next steps.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Merritt?
Yes, it was just on the forward plan. There were actually only 3 items that were listed that are more than a month away. Clearly, in terms of pre-scrutiny, a rather larger forward plan is required. And I appreciate we're at the end of the year, but nonetheless, I'm sure there are a lot more items that are working their way down the line. 3 in June.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a number that will definitely be coming forward. Mass transit, bus franchising, we'll keep our eye on that. There's also the devolution, because we've got more clarification. As I said at the beginning, one of the papers that was taken yesterday was the integrated settlement and the outcomes framework is going to follow on from that. And I would have thought there would be a role for scrutiny to look at the baseline figures and what action plans are in place. And there's a number of other things that are going to be coming down the line that I think with the new revised governance structure, my understanding is that scrutiny is going to have more to do in terms of doing more scrutiny inquiries, which in the past may have gone to some of the themed committees, will actually be coming to us. When I say us, I mean scrutiny in general. Whoever. I think that's one of the things that we'll need to add to it. And also because, yeah, if you're not interested in what I'm saying, you are able to go. You've got time. You've got to be elsewhere. I accept that. I accept that. But there's a number of other things coming down the channels that will require scrutiny to take a more active interest. That's why it's been delayed. The AGM's been delayed until June, so that we can try and fit in all these new strategies, because we're going to have to think about how we're going to have to work through all of these issues. So, Councillor Watson, yes.
Barry, will you be doing sort of like an exit interview with someone, or will you be doing some? Is there any chance to do some sort of handover? No, seriously,
Yeah.
Because you've had it. The last 2 years, scrutiny's been very different. You've been in the chair.
Yeah.
I think we've learnt a lot
Yeah.
under you, and you have learnt lots about the internal working. And I think what we don't want to do with you going is we lose some of your knowledge and ideas. So one, I think an exit interview with someone would be really, really key. And also, I don't know if there is any chance to do handover. I don't know.
I'll leave it to my two colleagues on my left and to my right.
I think you've run it in a very different way, and you've been building a group of people and a team around you.
So, in terms of exit, that's not something that happens with members when they're moving on or they're stepping down. It's a really good point, though. But they're not employees. You are politically elected. Yeah, you are an office holder.
But you've done something and you've learned. I mean, it would just be interesting, even if it's a chat and a coffee.
And I think that's where I was coming to. I think some sort of discussion of what your top tips are, or something about what you found worked really well for the combined authority and what didn't. I think that's definitely something that we can sort of facilitate. But equally, whoever is sitting in this chair next new municipal year, they may wish to do things completely different, and they might not agree with the way, with respect, Councillor Anderson, that you run it. But I think
no, but it would be crazy to not at least have that down. Then at least they can say, well, I've seen that, and I'm ignoring it. Whereas if you didn't know it, then you think, well, I don't know what I don't know.
Well, I think we need to get something down. If you want to do your thoughts down, I think that would be.
We do have a number of meetings in the diary we've already looked at with Callan in particular. We've got one next week, so yes, we could start that process.
Yeah, it might be any of you sat around the table that might, you don't know what's going to happen.
Councillor Rowntree.
Thank you. There is a tradition in the political world, isn't there, of leaving a letter in the desk for your successor. I wonder
It doesn't always go so
depends on the
well.
office.
It doesn't always go so well, but you may think it's worth taking a pop at that approach.
Yeah, I'll try and come up with some suitable phrase to put in there. But yeah.
I had this once when I took over as the portfolio holder in Bradford in 2010, and he's passed away now. It was a very, very nice chap from the Tory group, Michael Kelly, doing
I'm
I have a work colleague who lives in your ward, and he has nothing but praise for you.